Senator Warren, welcome back to Pod Save America. Good to see you.
Thank you. It is always good to be at the pod.
Great to have you. We got a lot to get through. We're in shutdown mode.
Yep.
It's looming mode.
Mm-hmm.
Senate Republicans rejected the Democratic proposal on Friday that would have reversed a bunch of healthcare cuts and extended Obamacare health insurance subsidies, which are set to lapse on January 1st, will cost people thousands of dollars. They passed that through the big, beautiful bill. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer demanded to meet with President Trump. Then President Trump said he's happy to meet. Where are we at? What's next here?
So let me back up just a tiny little bit about where we are for families all across this country. Last spring, the Republicans passed that, or into summer, big, beautiful bill. It will take away health care from 15 million Americans, Medicaid, and also some ACA, Affordable Care Act subsidies. But it will affect the cost of health care for everybody in America. And in fact, some of that is starting to click in right now, because when hospitals have to deal with uncompensated care, and they do, they got to raise their prices overall. So health insurance companies know they're going to be paying more for people who have insurance. So there are folks who are listening to this right now who are getting their letters from their health insurance companies saying things like, oh, you used to pay $700 a month, which I think is wow. But now you're going to have to be paying $1,600, $2,100, $2,700. The numbers are coming through. And these are huge increases for some people, all because Trump and the Republicans are trying to cut back on the spending, the federal spending on healthcare. So what's happened is, as you know, we're about to head into, you got to pass a new budget by September 30th, if the government runs out of money and will shut down. So the Republicans can't do that without Democratic votes in the Senate. They got to have us because they got to get to 60, and they've only got 53 if they have everybody on their side, which they might not. So they got to pick up 7 or more on our side. And what the Democrats have said is, look, we're happy to talk, but here's our ask. We want you to roll back some of those healthcare cuts. We want you to roll back the part of the healthcare cuts where you're going to take away healthcare from brand new babies and their mamas, where you're going to push seniors out of nursing homes and out onto the street, where you're going to take away the wheelchair and the home health aid from our neighbor who needs some assistance to live independently. We want you to roll some of this back. We're not asking you to spend more money than you were before. We're not asking to advance some huge new healthcare policy, but by damn, roll back some of these cuts before people start dying. And so far, Donald Trump and the Republicans have said, nope.
Right.
Nope. That's been it. Not, well, how about this? And could you do that? Nope. Just saying nope. And so Democrats are in the fight. We're out there slugging it right now.
Okay. But so the Republicans are, but we're on the other side of them saying no.
Right.
The House is gone. Republicans went home in an act of bluster.
Yep.
They control the House. They have the majority in the Senate. They control the White House. They're saying, hey, you're doing what Republicans used to do. You don't have the power. You're trying to gum up the works. Let's we're going to pass a clean bill. And if you want to take credit for a shutdown, you'll pay a political price for it. So what's the response to that?
The response to that is help a few million people get their health care back. Don't raise prices for everybody who's got private insurance. Don't take a bite out of Medicare, which this bill ultimately will because of other provisions and the fact that it's going to drive up the national debt. Just don't do that. That we're saying Democrats are willing to fight, and what we're willing to fight for right now is you got to do better on health care for people across this country.
So just play this out.
Sure.
Democrats have now decided this is the fight we want to fight on. This is our ask. It is clear. It is concise. People can understand it. Republicans say no. We enter in a shutdown. They're forcing vote after vote after vote. Are Democrats united around holding the line on this issue of healthcare? And is the idea that ultimately you believe the Republicans will blink and Trump will sign a bill that undoes these cuts?
So yes, the Democrats are together. We know what we're doing. This is a righteous fight. I mean, this is the fight to have. It's a fight that's people can understand, and it's a fight that touches every single person in this country. And can I just do a little side here? Do you remember what was happening exactly a year ago right now?
I don't remember what was happening yesterday.
Okay, well, that's fair. But Donald Trump was standing up saying over and over and over that people should vote for him because on day one, he would lower costs for American families. Remember that? He used the phrase over and over, on day one. Those were his words. Well, now we're on day 240, 50, something like that. And the price of groceries is up. The price of utilities is up. The price of housing is up. The price of back-to-school shoes is up, and backpacks and baby strollers up, 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 up. Price of healthcare is up, and thanks to Trump and the Republicans and their one piece of legislation, it's about to go up a whole lot more. This matters to American families. They are telling us that what they want is somebody on their side to help reduce costs. Donald Trump not only has done nothing, he's seen the costs go up. He and the Republicans have raised the cost. I think this is the place to throw down and have that fight.
So there's people making the opposite argument, which just says, you're right about all that. He is failing to achieve what he promised. He is in the toilet in his numbers on all of these issues, right? He has not been able to deliver. Democrats are united on that score. Republicans look bad on that score. And then we're going to go into a shutdown in which the politics are far murkier. And on a pure, practical, hard-nosed political calculation, that to some people seems like a stupid idea.
So I got to say, I'm not sure why anybody thinks it's murkier. Now, look, it's not for me about the politics.
I hope it should be. Why not?
No, let me say it slightly differently. It is about getting people the health care they need. And that is a goal we not only can keep in mind, it is a goal we should keep in mind. I think the politics here are very straightforward. We stand up and tell the American people every single day what Donald Trump promised and what they are doing right now, and that all the Democrats are asking for is to roll that back so that millions of people don't lose health care. I think that's a pretty strong place to fight from. And damn, if Democrats aren't willing to fight for that, then we got a lot bigger problems.
So I want to come at it from the other side. And I want to stand this just because I do think it's a genuine, like, Democrats are in a very tough position. I just want to be clear about this. And I don't think there's a lot of obviously, clearly great paths. We are not in power. That is a deep frustration. But the other side of the argument is, I agree with everything you're saying about healthcare. Donald Trump is consolidating his power over the federal government.
Yep.
We would be funding something that would be used to go after political enemies, to gut agencies without congressional approval, to allow him to continue doing corrupt deals that enrich him and his family personally. That any imprimatur of Democratic support for funding this government is a kind of normal politics when we need to shut this thing down by any congressional means that we have. And yes, healthcare is a uniting issue, but it's also, in some sense, one in a constellation of really unprecedented assaults on the checks and balances of our society, of the Constitution. Kimmel's back today, terrific, but trying to abuse the FCC to go after his political enemies. And that this is maybe politically the right fight, healthcare, but it's not the truest, danger in our society right now.
So I think of this as nothing succeeds like success. You got to get some wins. Mm-hmm. You got to show that you can stand together, you can stand up when the going gets tough, that you can still all push hard, because that's how we're going to have to take this fight on. I think that, for example, today with Kimmel, yeah, you're right. Kimmel's back, and yay, that's wonderful. So what's going to be the takeaway? Did it fix everything? No. Should we still be beside ourselves over a president who so openly has made it clear that he wants to control the media, the stories about him, and destroy the First Amendment? And my view on that is no, we should not relax over any part of this. But there's another part to the takeaway, and that is your voice actually matters. enough people stood up, enough people went into the streets, found it different ways, enough comics stood up, enough people hung out flags, enough people said, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? That's not right. And yes, it's a small piece of a big, big problem, but it's a toehold on reminding ourselves of our own power. And I think that's what's coming up at the end of the week on this question about healthcare. We get more people energized, more people mobilized, and we push back. Two good things could come out of this. One is a few million people could get healthcare coverage who otherwise wouldn't, and some rural hospitals wouldn't close, and some cancer research would be restarted. Those would all be good things all by themselves, no matter whatever else happens. But the second is we'd all say, oh, fighting pays off. And look, I'm willing to fight. That's who I am.
Yeah.
But we win when we've got a lot of us fighting. We've got a lot of us committed. We've got a lot of people who've seen how dark and scary it can get in the middle of a fight and who still realize that it is worthwhile to stick together and stay in the fight. So I think we should do it. I think we will do it. And I think the consequences of doing it doesn't win everything everywhere all at once, but it gets us on a winning path. And damn, we need that. And
you feel like there's 43 of your colleagues that aren't going to squish?
I do. I do.
All right. So in other news, TikTok legally banned since January, but in a completely lawless way. It's still been chugging along. We now have more details on the new deal via Axios that Trump may announce this week. The algorithm would be leased to a new company owned by billionaire Trump allies. So problem solved?
Oh, totally. Look, this is the ultimate about the price we pay for corruption. And it's Donald Trump trying to seize media and every possible vehicle. So, yes, getting his buddy Ellison in there and they run it and it all, guess what? Every algorithm says Donald Trump is the guy, right? But it's bigger than that. It's how this country has shifted so dramatically. And I don't want to go from the country was perfect and now the country is terrible. It's the country had a lot of problems and now, man, you thought those were problems. They have just magnified. And it's the corruption element. You see it by what does it mean to build an oligarchy? You know, Vladimir Putin puts his buddies in to run things that will make his buddies billionaires, but also means the buddies will use the power and energy of the things they run to support Vladimir Putin. That's the deal. And Donald Trump, big admirer of Vladimir Putin, wants to control, yes, he wants to control the media, but he wants to control everything, right? He's cutting deals with NVIDIA on their chips, right? He wants a piece of the action. He wants to control because he wants to get something back from these guys. He wants money personally. You want to do the crypto play here. But he wants all of these billionaires, all of these tech CEOs, all of these CEOs come in and bend the knee to Donald Trump, offer Donald Trump what did they used to call it in Roman times? A tribute.
Yeah. Wants to get his beak wet, let's say.
That's right. Wants to dip his beak. Isn't that the phrase? And give Donald Trump something. And then, lo and behold, your giant purchase gets approved. Your merger gets approved. If you're a foreign country, your tariff gets approved. If you're just a giant international company, your tariff exception gets approved. Right? Your license, your broadcast license remains viable. So Donald Trump is trading the things that are valuable to our nation off to a handful of individual corporate actors for the purpose of increasing Donald Trump's political power and his personal finances.
So there's two sides to this. One is Donald Trump, through a lot of bluster, has convinced corporations to give him power he couldn't take, right? We've seen that with Disney. We've seen that with others. But the other side of it is that these corporations, universities, media outlets, law firms, they're not afraid of repercussions from people that believe in democracy, right? There was no actual organized campaign to boycott Disney. It seems to have happened naturally as people took in the news, and maybe Disney was hopefully caught off guard by that. But Columbia wasn't afraid of its alumni when it went into a deal with Trump. Are we doing enough, those of us that believe in democracy, to lay out the ways in which we will hold companies and institutions accountable for capitulating to Donald Trump? And are there things we should be talking about more?
Yeah. No, we're not doing enough. And yes, there are things we should be talking about a whole lot more. And let me just tie it back. That's why I see the Jimmy Kimmel as just a tiny little spot of light. I don't want to oversell, but it is some light and should remind a whole lot of people, wait, our voices matter here. And it's the same thing about this upcoming showdown over shutting down the government. Look, this is the moment. I say this to everybody in the country right now. This is the moment. If you can't think of somebody whose healthcare you're willing to fight for, your own, your cousins, your neighbors, if you can't do that, just think about Donald Trump's power overall and the Republicans' power overall, how they could agree among themselves with no Democrats with them to take away health care from 15 million Americans, shut down these hospitals, drive up costs for everybody else. Why? So they could hand out $1 trillion in tax breaks to a handful of billionaires and billionaire corporations. Get your blood boiling over this. We have a moment. And sometimes you need those moments. You need those moments where people will speak up. You know, in fact, I want to give you a little piece of this. I get it. It's not always that here's the rally starts, at 10 o'clock on Saturday. I love it. I love the protests. I love the rallies. But it's lots and lots of ways. You know where I've spent the last week has been with podcasters who are in the healthcare space. They're not politicians, but man, they care about access to healthcare. They care about access to healthcare for little babies, and they care about it for people in nursing homes. This is a moment where we have a chance to unite. And yeah, we're using different modes than we used before. This is the subject matter in front of us is healthcare, but it's about power, our power versus their power. We got a chance here. But when you got a chance, you better take it.
So former Vice President Kamala Harris has a book coming out. She describes being deferential to the Bidens and whether he should seek a second term, given the liability age had become as reckless. I know you've talked about this, but do you agree with how the vice president characterizes that moment? And do you believe that would apply to other leaders as well? Was the leadership of the Democratic Party reckless?
So look, I haven't read her book, so I shouldn't be speaking about, a summary of what she said. But I put it this way right now. I think that public service is an honor and a great responsibility. And you get up every day and just try to do your best. And you try to do your best, not so you can get reelected, but you try to do your best so you can actually make something happen that's good. And that connects to this point by way of saying, we, as Democrats, we did badly in 2024. For me, the way I see it, the little plot of land I stand on, is the way we did badly is that we let the billionaire wannabe, tyrant wannabe stand out there and be the guy who talked about the economics of American families in a way that they heard. We let him be the guy who said, I hear how it's not working for you, and I'm going to fix that. I'm going to make that a key part of my whole presidency. You had some other stuff, but this was the thing. After he gets elected, he says when he's first interviewed, why do you think you won? And he said, because I talked every day about lowering costs on day one. And so when you put it, you look backwards, you say, we really screwed up on that. So for me, the lesson I take away from that is I am not screwing up on that one again. And if I can help it, I'm not letting Democrats screw up on that one again. We got to stay focused on this question of what's happening to millions of American families. Why are they loading up on debt? Why are car repossessions on the rise? Why is it that their description of this economy is the lowest it's been in half a century? And what are the things we can do about it? And by the way, that's why the healthcare fight is the right fight to have. But there is more that we need to do there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is not, I know everyone is sick of looking backwards, nobody more than me. But I ask because I think I look at this moment, I say, all right, the Democratic brand is in the toilet. People don't trust Democrats. They don't believe Democrats. And I think, well, how did we get here? And part of it was people couldn't feel the effects of economic policies where they had been passed. And we were just, the bully pulpit was empty. Joe Biden was a terrible communicator. And we, even people that were defending his ability to do the job, I don't think were even honest with themselves enough about how much of a price we're paying for that lack of communication. And then I look at a moment where there are Democratic leaders who aren't endorsing someone like Mamdani, who's inspired a lot of people. And I look at this shutdown fight and I think, am I going to look back on this and say, I wasn't admitting to myself that I thought we didn't have the leaders in place who maybe they're great at organizing, maybe they're great at communicating on the Hill, maybe they're great internally, but like, are these the galvanizing leaders who can go toe to toe with Donald Trump right now?
You know, I guess I see this part of it slightly differently. You're here. You've got a damn big microphone. Don't tell me about the leaders of the Democratic Party. You know what the fight is. You can describe this fight in a whole sentence.
Okay, you're right.
So get in the fight. No, but I'm serious about this. You know, people say to me, who's the leader of the Democratic Party? And my answer to that is we got 47 people in the United States Senate who are out there in this fight. And you know what we need right now? 47 people in the United States Senate. That is the thing we need the most. We need all 47 of them absolutely at full pedal to the metal on these fights. And we need to get them into these fights. And right now, spending our time shooting at each other, I just don't think that is the place to go. I think the place to go is get in this fight and give it everything you've got. TikTok, we are running out of time.
I hear that, and I want to be there with you on that, but I'm in an odd numbered year still. And I feel like it's an odd numbered year, so I get to have these kinds of conversations. We're getting into the fall of next year. I want to get together, but I think sometimes, look, this was one of the arguments to say, stop talking about Joe Biden's age in the run-up. No, but I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just, part of this is, yes, everybody has to pull together. We have a job to do. We shouldn't be turning the microphones against each other, to continue the analogy. But at the same time, I look at the Democratic Party and it's about message, and yes, it's about a plan, but it's also about a base of people that authentically believe in the people that are speaking to them and for them.
Yes.
And I know that I've watched you campaign. I know that people know what you stand for and have an authentic connection, and that you've been fighting for it since you were a writer and professor. I look at AOC, Bernie, Barack Obama, even Bill Clinton. It's not ideological. And I say, all right, these are people who I understand their worldview, and that gives me confidence when they tell me that they're going to do something hard or they're going to compromise, whatever it may be. And I have to go pretty far down the list of leaders of the Democratic Party before I get to people that have that authentic connection to the people they want to lead. And that does make me worried about a shutdown. And I do think it's worth having this fight now, rather than looking back next year and saying, wow, we really didn't have people at the microphones that were the right people to lead us.
I see it right now, this minute, as we know what the fight is in front of us.
Okay.
I don't need somebody to tell me this. I don't need somebody to say, oh, well, I have this title within the Democratic Party, so I'm going to tell you what to get out there and talk about. I'm the one who decided to come here today. And I hope that's happening with 46 other folks on my side in the Senate and 200 plus on the House side, because the substance of the fight matters right now. A win matters right now. This is what we're into. And there is no one voice anywhere who will win this fight by themselves. It is instead, we are a party that is still tied to people and the fight that we are having. If we had held Donald Trump to tell the truth a year ago, if we'd had just a little bit of here's what we want to do and here's what we are doing for hardworking people, here's how much we understand about what's broken, and here's what we're willing to do to fight for it. A winning fight matters, and it has knock-on effects that I think matter here. And this is why I understand the very sophisticated people who say there's a lot broken and it's not just healthcare. Can I tell you a quick story?
Of course.
Okay. When I was a little girl, I was studying Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It's like some fifth grade, thing where you got to copy out some words about him. And I'm sitting on the floor back in Oklahoma where I'd grown up. And I look up at my grandmother, who's in her 90s, and she had lived through the Great Depression. And I just say to anyone who doesn't know, the Great Depression in Oklahoma was the 1-2 punch of economic catastrophe in a dust bowl, unlike the world had ever seen. And my mama and papa got wiped out in the Great Depression. Bank failed, lost all the money that they had put away for their retirement, basically had to start over. And so I'm sitting there while I'm working on this report, and I looked up and I said, Mama, do you know who Franklin Roosevelt was? And she smiles at me. She says, of course. And I said, what did he do? And my mama, who had an 8th grade education, read the newspaper every day, she looks up and she said, well, he made it safe to put money in banks and a lot of other good stuff. I think of it this way. You fight very real fights that people can see that touch their lives. And sure, we all have the rest of the fights too. God bless. There's a lot that was broken. There was a lot that was broken. The creation of the SEC, right? All the things that we did following the Great Depression that we saw was broken, that we needed. But the key part is that you've got to reach as many people as you can across this country with the story of what you're fighting for, and that we're all trying on our side to support that, to make sure people don't die, to make sure they don't lose their health care. And that if we can make that clear and get enough pushback that some number of people actually do get their health care restored or their cancer research restored, and the Democrats get a win, I think that's a step in the right direction for us.
So speaking of healthcare, before we let you go, right before we were recording this, there was a bizarre press conference with Donald Trump and RFK Jr., head of Health and Human Services. Trump was speaking. This is a pretty dubious announcement about the connection between acetaminophen and autism, with a recommendation that pregnant women no longer take Tylenol or acetaminophen. This follows the RFK's panel voting against the combined MMR and chickenpox vaccine for kids under 4. What's your reaction to that? And what happens when the president starts rambling? He can't even pronounce acetaminophen, by the way, right, about healthcare in such an evidence-free way.
So I have a couple of responses. The first one is, it just feels like every day we turn on the news and it's the next episode in the Donald Trump show. And he gets stirred up about one thing or a different thing or another thing, and we're all off and running. And today it's this one. But that real people get hurt. And that's the scariest part about this. When RFK Jr. had been nominated to be the head of Health and Human Services, there were a lot of folks, not just Democrats, who said, whoa, that guy's been trafficking in anti-vaccine conspiracies, I mean, for a long time. Yick on this stuff. And it's not just yick, that could be dangerous to have somebody in that place if he started using his tools to get rid of vaccines. In fact, he'd been making money off suing vaccine companies and bringing in more plaintiffs and stirring people up to sue vaccine companies. So several of us asked him a lot of hard questions during the nomination process. And he gave I want to describe it as the right-ish answers, right? They were directionally right. Occasionally he'd say other things that you'd think, wait, what did he just say? But over and over and over, he said, I will not take away vaccines from anybody. And now he turns around 8 months later and let's face it, he has taken them away. The criteria under which you used to be able to get these vaccines has changed, and certain vaccines will not be available or will not be available to certain groups, or you'll have to pay lots of money for them. You'll have to do an off-label use, all of the above. Lots of speed bumps in the way, and in fact, some absolutely can't do this. So I think of this as a moment where we measure one more time how many checks have been lost on this administration. That it's no longer, but if all of the vaccine experts and the doctors and scientific evidence and around the world, all the experts and people who study this all the time all say, that makes no sense at all, that it just doesn't matter because RFK is off spinning in his own world. And as long as it's an audience of one, as long as he can keep Donald Trump happy, that is all that matters.
Do you think your colleague, Bill Cassidy, he is a doctor. He claimed to have gotten all these reassurances from RFK Jr. Have you talked to him about it? I can't tell. It's hard to tell if he was willfully, was he snowed or did he allow himself to be snowed? I can't tell.
Look, I don't know. I wasn't in the room. Yeah. I'm not in his head. But I do know that this business around the vaccines, that good people who've worked in this field, including Dr. Senator Cassidy, have expressed over and over their deep concerns if Americans are not getting vaccines. So I just look at what he says is a problem and then try to figure out not so much the backwards, where did the wheels come off the bus, but the forward. So what are we going to do about that? Where do we find the place to be able to get these vaccines back to a place, A, where they're available, but B, where more people get a truthful answer about the risks of having unvaccinated children.
And it does seem like with all things, it comes back to win the House.
Yeah.
And
could we also win the Senate?
It'd be great to win the Senate too, but either way, build a bipartisan support for vaccines, given that it remains a deeply bipartisan issue. Last question.
Sure. What
are you streaming? What are you watching? What are you consuming? The baller. I can't even bring up the Ballers thing again. It's been years now, but it still shocks the conscience. So what do you like?
The Pit.
Oh, The Pit.
And Hacks. Have I seen the two best shows ever? I love them both. The Pit was fabulous.
Have you watched Andor? You're not a Star Wars person. You got to watch Andor, although it's on Disney Plus. Now that Kimmel's back, are we allowed to have it?
No, I think you're still not. You got to punish them for a while.
All right. Well, once they've come back, once they've bent the knee to us, once the mouse has come and begged for our forgiveness,
I'm ready.
You got to watch Andor.
Okay. And I'm trying to think what else. We've been watching BritBox stuff. We just watched the. Do you watch BritBox?
I don't know. BritBox?
Oh, this is the
BritBox.
comes in. We watched a thing that's set in Belfast. And it's really strong. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I confess, we are totally into I'm now getting this down to a science. 5 to 8 episodes, right? Anything really shorter than that, even a movie, is like, are you there enough to get to know the people and kind of deep into it? And on the other end, if it's too long,
you're out.
Yeah, jumps the shark.
Fall asleep.
I've moved on. But anyway, that's been the number one thing that we've been watching. I love Hacks.
Senator Warren, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's always good to see you. And thanks for staying in the fight.
Where else would we be,